Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to today's TriCast Tri-Stream situation. It's VMIS and Rickatron. Good day, Melissa. How are you?
Hello, Rick. I'm good. How are you on this wonderful Friday?
It's been a week. I think I trimmed about 2% of my life expectancy with this week. But, we're ready to talk about a serious topic, ransomware advice deconstructed. You're in Jersey. I'm in Ohio.
Yes.
And we've got a new guest in the U.S. state of Washington. That's right.
Interesting.
Who could it be? Everyone roll your dice. But here's the other thing. Let us know where you're from. We want to light up the map, all the other states and countries around the world. So drop in a U.S. state or a country that you're in. We're going to rock the mapplication. So I'd like to introduce our guest today, Mr. Zane Allan. Good day, Zane. How are you?
Great. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Zane, I know you have a background in Veeam, but not everybody else does. So do the quick intro. Tell us about your background and what you're up to now.
Yeah. I even wore my Veeam shirt here today, so green and orange. But I am a principal technology strategist with Pure Software. Pure Storage. Previously Veeam Software.
Veeam Software.
Prior to this, kind of put those two together, didn't I? That is what we're talking about today. But yes, I spent just over 5.5 years with Veeam Software. Prior to that, kind of in the Washington area, several roles before coming over here. So have a pretty intimate knowledge of the solution together, and happy to join you today and talk about that.
Yeah, good stuff. And a big welcome to Zane, friend of Veeam, so that's awesome.
Welcome to the party, Zane.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the party is actually a very serious topic.
Yes,
ransomware advice, deconstructed. We're going to go a little different direction here. So, Melissa, the joke we have on our team is that you have more experience with ransomware than most of us do.
I do, yes.
But when we walked into preparing this content, what's the deconstructed part mean to you, Melissa?
So a lot of times you'll hear stuff about ransomware and, just kind of general terms like, oh, you can use Veeam to protect against ransomware to help you recover from ransomware. But, we want to take it a step further and talk about some of the, the Veeam magic along with the pure magic and actually give you some kind of actionable deconstruction of this whole how to recover from ransomware, right? Because if you're at the point where you're recovering from backups, that's really your last line of defense. So we want to make sure you have it in place before you get ransomware. Because remember, ransomware is a disaster.
It is a disaster. That's right. And I think the deconstruction element for me, my logic here is that Veeam is part of the solution, but we need, things to help us give the market these outcomes you need. So there's source data, there's places that backups sit, and there's technologies that Veeam works with along the way to get there. So let's jump over to a quick presentation that'll help us kind of go through this in this mode here. So I want to first of all start with the threat landscape, and we all know that ransomware is real. We don't really have too much education to offer because we've all dealt with it, but I do want to kind of start with a latest point of view, and I'll start with you, Zane. When you have to talk to individuals and organizations about ransomware, how do you bring it up, or does it come to you?
Yeah, I would say, it comes to us. It's definitely, I don't think there's a conversation I have, and this was true before I came here. Ransomware isn't a topic, right? That's kind of top of mind. And there's lots of definitions for ransomware. Everybody's heard about it. It's in the news. You don't really have to completely introduce it, but what we try to preface it as is it's an event. That means IT department, management has, it's a long day for them, right? It's something they have to deal with, assess the situation, and maybe even have to bring back a lot of data at once, right? And to get back up and running. And it's a ticking clock for them, right? It's how fast can we get back up and running? Have we identified what's important that needs to be brought back first, and so forth? And what are those processes that you need to go through to identify this data and identify how you're going to bring it back when it's a matter of when, right? Not if, when that event happens. And I like your point, Melissa. It's definitely
Disaster. She said it's a disaster.
Definitely a disaster.
It's a
Yeah,
disaster.
that I think that is a true to the form. It's a disaster, right?
Other than your point of view, Melissa, on the disaster, I mean, how do you kind of bring it up to organizations today as well?
Yeah, most times I don't have to bring it up, and a lot of times I am talking to organizations about disaster recovery in general and recovery in general. And I will just say, hey, remember, ransomware is a disaster. And people are like, oh no, you're right. Like this could be a full scale site recovery. You're totally right. Like, what do we do? And then it kind of comes into, okay, let's take a step back. How can we be protecting things today? So when tomorrow, and I also tell people it's probably if not it's probably when, not if you get attacked, right? There's a lot of stuff going on. So let's put the pieces into place now before it happens so you can recover successfully. Because if you have a solid data protection strategy, recovering from ransomware should be child's play, right? This should be something that you know how to do. You've tested it. You're confident in your ability to recover. And it should kind of almost be not that big of a deal.
Yeah. That's the plan. And when I deconstruct it, it's something you've prepared for. And when I deconstruct it for organizations today, I also will dust in the other behaviors, right? Because there's many types out there, and one of the new behaviors is extortion of data. One of the new behaviors is, of course, encryption.
Encryption. I like that.
Encryption, yeah, or encryption. But
just
the other
creeps in, right? Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I've seen some do deletion, which is where that hard E was coming in. And then I've also seen had some reports of some that come on some of the new attack vectors. And this is actually very important for today because it's not just encrypting your data. It's not just extorting your data, but I've seen some where it'll play on new platforms like Discord and Slack and even take over some animated GIFs and things like that, SMS messages. So the behavior, the surface area sprawl is real. False shares. How many times have you had an email that looks like it's a OneDrive share, but it's probably not, So you got to think about the vectors, right? There's so much more to it. But at the end, so when we deconstruct the market, we got to also still, again, think about executing that plan of recovery. So I'm going to start with you, Melissa. What is this wonderful 5-spoked wheel?
Oh, geez. This looks like the NIST cybersecurity framework to me, which is really a framework that a lot of organizations follow to make sure that they are ready for some kind of cyber incident, whatever it might be in their environment.
And it is indeed the cybersecurity framework. And what I like to talk to people about is really thinking about backup as aligning to the framework. And the thought is, if you look at Veeam today, there are capabilities, every function of the wheel that align to things that you can do to help bolster your ransomware preparedness. Now, the magic here, Melissa, is, and this is the trick question. So, Melissa, I'm going to let you have your way.
Oh, dear.
Is there a function in here that you think people might not have a strong angle on? Any guess?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with response in general, and I mean that a couple of different ways. One, your cybersecurity incident response, whatever that might be, you need to have a response plan from ransomware, and that's more than just when it comes to recovery. That's your whole, what happens when we find ransomware in the environment, what steps do we take, that kind of things. After that, when it comes time to respond from a point where, okay, we're ready to start responding to this event and bringing systems back online, you really need to be able to do that in a fast method that you're confident that works, that's fully documented and been tested, right? So that's kind of where that orchestration, SLA validation, and dynamic documentation piece comes in during that response.
Indeed. And when I deconstruct the wheel, again, I talk to our support team, I talk to customers and partners who are dealing with ransomware. When I deconstruct what works and also what doesn't, consistently what I'm seeing is the response function is an area of improvement. Now, this is an area, and hint for next week, Melissa and I are going to talk about orchestration a little bit. But I consistently deconstruct incidents, and I see that response is an area where organizations can improve. Now, I want to give a shout out to the organizations that are in like state, local government, city governments, things like that. I've actually seen those types actually perform pretty well because they have established incident response teams and organizations. You don't always see those in the private sector. So, as a piece of advice for the market, if you are in an organization and you're like now Google searching or Bing searching, what is incident response? That's an opportunity for you, right? Because I've talked to a number of organizations, Melissa, that won't even like start recovering and doing anything for a day because they don't know what to do of this type of
Exactly.
nature, right? So that's
Exactly.
precious time. So the other kind of impact opportunity here that I want to highlight is really around the perception. So if you're a backup product, I would expect, just by definition, before the Veeam capabilities have been aligned to the framework here, that there'd be strong protection and recovery. And
I would hope so.
Yeah. But the reality is every function has a part when it comes to Veeam capabilities. But I'd also challenge that even people need to think this way. One of the things I've started to say is that everyone in an organization is part of the cybersecurity team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's important because the other angle is that detection is also the other impact opportunity I want to highlight. So I'm going to give you a trick question, Zane. What is the detection mechanism of ransomware you do not want to observe? It's a trick question.
Can I answer, Rick?
The actual event or what? A little too late or I don't know.
What's your guess, Melissa?
Logging into your server and seeing it's been ransomware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not how you want to detect it.
Or
Not
a
how you
crazy,
do it.
crazy text message of from an end user saying, "Hey, John, something's weird. What's this mean?" Or the a help desk ticket comes in. That is not how we want to have detection, right? I think we all can agree there. And for the audience, those of you who have been through a ransomware incident, you've all had that heart-dropping moment when you get that call or get that help desk ticket or that update from a stakeholder that says, "Hey, this has happened," and you know what it is. They may not know, but you do. All right, I just got word from the producers that the mapplication is ready. And wow, thank you all so much for letting us know where you are from. Let's take a look. We have, let's see here. Do we have the map? Yeah, we do have the map. Oh, there it is. In the U.S., we got Louisiana. I hope everyone's okay down there, by the way.
Yep.
I know it's been a rough one. Illinois, Indiana, Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, again, in addition to New Jersey with VMIS and the U.S. state of Washington for Zane. And let's transition over to EMEA. Oh, represent. I like it. We've got UK, Netherlands, France, Spain, Poland, Slovakia, Germany, and Russia. Oh, good. Russia's in, so it makes everything green. I like it, like it a lot. And then let's go down south, Argentina and Brazil, two big ones. Thank you so much. And over in the Middle East region, we have Iran tuning in. So again, welcome Hector from Mexico. Keep them coming. Let us know in the chat across all the streams, by the way. I'm watching LinkedIn, but if you're on, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, LinkedIn, probably somewhere else.
Everywhere.
I don't know. Let us know in the chat. We've got producers. I got a big shout to Katie in Romania who's watching the world. Oh, William, you're doing good, my man. Didn't miss a beat. There's a guy with a plan. I'm going to give you a thumbs up there, William. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. William, a nice guy down in Louisiana. Cheers, mate. Thanks for joining us. All right. Yeah, keep those locations coming in, everyone. Thanks. All right. So we deconstructed the framework, but now I'm going to deconstruct it another way. I mentioned that, Veeam can't do it alone. And I think that's a pretty bold thing to say, right? We're software. We don't control the hardware. We don't control the storage entirely. But, I do think that partnerships at Veeam are a way to go and drive some really strong options. And I'll even go so far as to say that Veeam has partnerships built into our DNA. One of the very few, by the way, the very few storage technologies that meet Melissa and I's criteria of ultra resilient is the Pure Storage solution. So Zane, why don't you tell us a little bit about what is really compelling for the Veeam audience with Pure Storage?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Veeam's always has some deep integrations, it being software defined. allows itself well for that. But first and foremost, and kind of something that's been around for a while, is the integration with the primary data, right? So, you talk about the 3-2-1 rule. I like to think of it as many different ways to kind of restore from from a disaster and whatnot. And it's that integration at the primary array level. And the reason why that's important is really nothing's faster than a snapshot, right? With Pure, they're instantaneous. It's metadata. You can make them quick. You can keep them for recovery points, and you can recover from them quickly as well. And we'll even talk about how it even lends to itself better to some of Veeam's other capabilities that can help you out in this space. Again, it's all managed by Veeam and on Pure, right? It's still Pure snapshots at the end of the day, but Veeam has visibility. But something new, and if you're familiar with Pure, we're talking about FlashArray//C here. We do have the FlashBlade, right? So there's still a couple of platforms, but the introduction of FlashArray//C lent itself very well as a backup target because of first and foremost, the density that storage has, right? Backups can take space. Maybe you need requirements that take more space. And this is a way to not compromise the speed that we talked about, because you have to recover possibly a lot of data in a ransomware event, but still getting that density. But something else that's introduced across both these platforms, and this is where that resilience comes in, is the ability for those snapshots I talk about, primary and from a backup perspective, which is very interesting, is the safe mode protection. So safe mode, really extension of something Pure's had for quite a while. The eradication timer. I go to delete a snapshot. It doesn't really delete for a period of time. That's an automatic feature. This is a way to extend that and even lock it so that it can't be changed, even by an insider, compromise admin credentials. So that way, go back to what earlier that you talked about. You put these in place. It's easy to do. It's two technologies. You don't have to do much else. It's there when you need it. It also isn't going to disappear because a threat, insider threat, somebody's compromised your credentials, and they kind of work to eliminate your ability to restore. So this just takes that immutable snapshot and actually makes it what we like to say resilient, right? Because it's immutable, can't be changed, and I can't remove it from the environment before it's time.
So Zane, a comment here, and this is just me being a nerd, I guess, but is it the FlashArray 8 and the FlashArray 98? Are those Roman numerals, or is it just X and C? I wasn't quite sure.
It's just X and C. It's a product line.
All right, cool. You mentioned
C for think of it anyway, but yeah, X line. C would be the secondary tier, would be the way to call it. QLC Flash is the technology that's behind it that makes that flash ultra dense. Pure's Purity, the OS, is uniquely developed to be able to manage that in a very efficient way. So you don't, so you get the density, but you still get the power of Flash.
So Newman had a great question. I'm going to pull that up on a subsequent slides here, Newman, but I'm not forgetting about you. So we're going to get to that here just in a second, because the story I'm going to tell, Newman, aligns completely to what you're getting at here. No, I'm going to go for it, even though you deleted it. All right. So Zane, tell me about the backup perspective, right? So the storage has these capabilities. We're going to come back to Pure safe mode snapshots here in a second, but tell me about some of the regular capabilities of this integration that customers can benefit from today.
Yeah, so talked about capacity optimized. What I've always loved, and I was a Veeam customer prior to Veeam and prior to Pure, was the self-describing backup file. So putting that on that array, we got the capacity optimized so that, we have the space to allot for that, letting you be able to rescan. So we're going to talk about safe mode again. Something happens to your backup files, right? We know ransomware is going after those first, trying to eliminate your ability to actually restore from an event. Veeam easily makes it, with safe mode, we can present that back to Veeam and easily rescan that. And then, of course, recover fast, right? That's that QLC Flash, density on the flash, but not compromising the speed. But I like, from a backup perspective, that's kind of how restore and process works. It's exactly the same Veeam process. It's using Pure snapshots to present it, should you need that, or pull right off the secondary storage. But I always like to point out the advanced capabilities of Veeam, the detection stuff that you were talking about earlier, the ability to use data labs to spin up data, the data API, right? Again, this Flash platform, even though it's a secondary tier, is still providing a fast and almost primary storage like experience from snapshots or from backup data to leverage those tools and really make Veeam shine where it does.
Melissa, do you have any favorite capability on
You
here?
can't ask me if I have a favorite capability. I don't think I'm allowed to admit I have a favorite anything at Veeam, but I am all about the data labs just because there's so many ways to use them, right? You can use a data lab to test your disaster recovery plan. You can use a data lab to spin up a copy of your environment to test patches before you roll them out to production, right? How many 0-day nasty things are out there and everybody's like, oh no, how do I test this? How do I patch this? Spin up a data lab, spin up your app, test it and roll your patch out and know that you're going to be at least protected from that, right? Because as Rick said, there are just so many different ways to get in these days. Use a data lab for analytics. Hey, that new person joined the team, train them in a data lab, right? Spin up the app and let them go wreak havoc in there and you don't have to worry about them impacting production. So that is probably my favorite on this list if you made me pick a favorite, but I love them all equally.
Well, if I was going to deconstruct this one here, and I pointed this one out in particular, is when you have the data lab capabilities that Veeam offer, instant VM recovery, sure backup, all these other mechanisms. But when it comes to ransomware, sometimes you want to fiddle around before you commit to something. It's really nice to have it at the same kind of performance level of your primary infrastructure, in addition to what you have for your backup. So you have an additional vehicle to play with. So I think it's really, really, really
Yeah, and that's something I've noticed just a general trend. And I was a customer before I went to go work for a storage company, and then I came to Veeam. And people are I want the biggest SATA drives I could possibly find for my backup repository because I'm going to leave it in the corner over there because it's a second-class citizen.
Yep.
Well, it really shouldn't be, because don't you want a fast tier of storage to recover from, right? Because remember, it's not only about backup, it's about recovery. So we have to think about those restore times and being able to use that data, which is one of the reasons personally I like the Flash IC so much better, right? You're getting the best of both worlds. You get that density, but it's not really slow SATA drives that you can't do anything with.
Yep.
Come on.
What's it gonna take to have you keep using some of those accents on our shows there, Melissa? Especially the grumpy person ahead of time. That was quite nice.
I'm glad you like that.
No, that's exactly where the QLC brings in that effective, right? It's giving you that capacity, but it's giving you that speed that you need for Flash. One other, if I may, for data labs, and this is something I used to talk about with customers and still do, penetration testing, right?
Oh, yeah.
DDoS your backups, DDoS those snapshots, and it can read the same snapshots that came from the primary array even, and then fix it and then retest, right? You have this data reuse that you can really leverage to bolster your malware defense.
I like this. And I also like that everyone has been letting us know where they're from. So let's transition back over to the Mapplication. So thank you all again. So we've added Canada. Someone else in Romania is joining. Whoop, whoop. Mexico, Peru. So good representation here in the Americas, and then South America as well. And then over in EMEA, Middle East, we've got India. Awesome. Welcome. Turkey. Missing someone on my map in Australia, Perth. Did 12 hours offset, midnight 30. I admire you. Awesome. And good stuff. So thank you both and all for letting us know where you're from. All right. I'm going to take the questions and a couple of different questions. George has had this. The other one kind of came in. I'm going to aggregate all of this up into something I want to explain here. And this is something I've been talking to customers and partners about that really is back to Melissa's first piece of advice, deconstructing the not if, but when we have to recover. So what I'm about to explain here for you has nothing to do with baseball season here. It's baseball season here in the U.S. We're going to have a lot of people pushing out for playoff positions and the like as the season finishes up. But I want to introduce you to double play or triple play immutability. And the thought here, friends, is that this is the way to have one of the most ultra-resilient specimens of your backup data to really ensure high confidence that you can recover. So in order to kind of set this up, and again, hackers always ahead of the protection, George is mentioning. And the other question about what if somebody takes over the backup console? What I want to show you right here is just one potential example of the Veeam scale-out backup repository with backup data kept, say, in Amazon S3 or S3 compatible. And Melissa, if you're looking at this diagram, what is missing from this? It's a trick question.
I don't know. We're looking pretty good. We got a hardened repository. We've got a capacity tier. We got an archive tier. I don't know, Rick. What are we missing?
Well, there's no Veeam infrastructure. There's no Veeam console. There's no.
Oh no!
Right, it's been jacked.
Oh no!
Exactly.
Who cares?
No.
Who cares? I've actually done this.
You've been here.
I've been here.
Yes.
My Veeam server might have gotten ransomware in the cloud. That's all I'm going to say.
That's may or may not have happened.
So I was a little worried for a second, but then I went to a different BNR server. I connected to my backup repository that was hosted in the cloud, and I rescanned it and I started restoring. And it took me about 6 minutes because I couldn't remember where to get the key in Azure for my backup repository, and that was about it.
Exactly. So what I'm getting at here is I have a distinct recommendation for organizations to use Veeam backups in a way that introduce at least one or two immutable copies of your backup data, one on, say, the hardened Linux repository, and then maybe a second on the Amazon capacity tier or S3 compatible capacity tier with immutability. And then you can throw yourself a triple play and use the safe mode snapshots of your hardened Linux repository. Now, this is beautiful because this is basically predicating, like preparing for having the console taken over. You don't have your Veeam console anymore, but you have 1, 2, 3 different copies of your backups, or at least instances. Maybe copies isn't the right word, with number 3 being a snapshot. All of them are with an immutability technique, and they're on 3 totally different storage control planes. So I'm convinced, everyone, by the math, this is a very resilient specimen that you can have high levels of recoverability for your data. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, we like to point that out here. These aren't mutually exclusive. Use hardened repository with safe mode and just
use it all.
Defense in depth, right? It's all about defense in depth.
It is. All right. So our takeaway, our life advice is to use the hardened repo, use the capabilities of your storage, and really be ready to prepare. So as we wrap up, I got some links here, and I really recommend that you take some of this stuff to heart, implement this, start with the 3-2-1-1-0 rule, right? And if you can implement immutability in multiple places, go for it, right? So Italy, sorry for not having your color right. Napern, I know you. Welcome, everyone. But UK, it's a couple other people. So thank you all for letting us know where you're from. But anyways, so a couple things here. Any closing thoughts, Melissa?
Yeah, really the time is now, right, to kind of start implementing some of this stuff. I was actually talking to someone that was just starting to implement immutability in their environment. They're like, I'm 70% there. I'm going the whole way. Everything's going to be immutable. So I don't have to worry if my stuff is encrypted. I'll just restore it. It's not a big deal, right? And that's what everybody is aiming for. We don't want a ransomware attack to be this massive nightmare where you don't know what you're doing and you don't know how to recover and No, just practice and have the confidence that you can restore your data with little effort.
Zane, any closing comments before I get to one more question that just came in?
Couldn't agree more with that. It's have a plan, right? And implement a system, as hopefully we outlined here, that's easy to manage, so you know that it's there when you need it, and it doesn't take a lot of time to implement and manage. So using the best of both worlds, as we explained. But yeah, it's having a plan, so when malware happens, as Melissa said, you just restore from it, go back to work.
Just recover. It's fine.
Just recover.
Put the plan into place. Question came in on the YouTube feed. Can the S3 bucket be compromised? Well, I think, again, by the math, anything can potentially be compromised. If someone took over the Amazon account, for example, that could be a problem. But I will tell you, when I've set up immutability, one time I did a demo in AWS and I said, keep it for 3 months. I had to wait 3 months before I could go delete that data in AWS, right?
That's what immutability does, Rick.
That's what
Once
it
you
does.
set it, that's
right.
it. So
Uriel has a question on one of the feeds, and he asks, "What's the terabytes per hour feed?" Right. So there's a lot of ways you can measure your throughput, right? It just depends. So I recommend you talk to the technical teams to get kind of a estimate of that. All right, we are at time, so real quick, Monday, Melissa's back. She's gonna kick off the first part of a multi-series disaster recovery deep dive. Everywhere there's disaster, there's
they
Melissa.
seem to follow me around. I don't know.
Yeah, and then Friday, Melissa's going to be back with me, and we're going to revisit the technical chat side of the orchestration 4 ways that we have off with the product as it is. So, Zane, Melissa, thank you both so much for joining us here today.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
for
you
having me, Rick.
On behalf of the global production team and the social media team here at Veeam, I'd like to thank everyone for attending. That concludes today's stream.